Good morning. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening, wherever you are. I am so very happy to be here with you today and to have our dear friend, Luiz Villaca, coming to us from Brazil. Luiz, thank you for being with us. And just for everyone to have a sense of what we're going to be talking about, Louise will be discussing this very important topic, charity. And he has done very interesting studies about charity from aspects beyond what we can think of, which is the philanthropic ideals, right? References for his studies will include Allan Kardec, St. Paul, and spiritual authors such as Joanna de Angelis, Andrea Louise, Emmanuel, Brother X, and others. But we are here today with you, Louise, so that we can better understand the nature, the meaning, the important aspects of charity, and of course, to see how we can better incorporate it in our lives. Today's topic of discussion, as you can see on the screen, is part of our series, Seeds of Knowledge. And I just want to say thank you, Louise, for being here with us. We are so very happy to have you during this opportunity to present this live talk for the Solitude Center for Spiritual Living. But if you don't know about our organization, I would like to just take a minute, Louise, to introduce. We are still quite young. We're not a baby anymore, but maybe a toddler. Next weekend, we will be celebrating our second anniversary. And just for those of you who do not know, we are 100% virtual, and what makes us quite unique is the fact that the founding members of Solitude Center were based in many different parts of the world. We are based in Brazil. At the time, we had founding members in China, Germany, and the US. Our body of contributors spans several countries as well, and we have live presentations, study groups, and consoling messages in English, in Portuguese. For now, our goal, Luis, is to expand our work to different languages such as German, Italian, French, and Spanish. More to come as we keep on growing. And for those of you who are here with us today, we welcome anyone who's interested in joining us in this effort to spread Spiritism and its consoling message around the world. Our work, as you know, is based on this amazing and vast body of work, Spiritist literature, and we work under the tutelage of Joanna de Angelis. But before we begin our talk, I would like to introduce Luiz Villaca for those of you who do not know him yet. Luiz Villaca is, depending on if you're speaking English or Portuguese, Portuguese would be Luiz Villaça, right? But Luiz is an electronics engineer. He has a Master's of Science from Carnegie-Mellon University and an MBA from Manchester University. He's a worker at Grupo Fraterno, which is a Spiritist center in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where he lives, and he's speaking to us from Sao Paulo. Luiz is also a strong contributor to Spiritism. He participates virtually in many different study groups at the SGNY, the Spiritist Group of New York. He has also given presentations in live presentations to beyond SGNY, the US Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and he also contributes to the CEI Spiritist Review with Portuguese and English translation. Thank you for all you do, Louise. With that, I'm going to go to the backstage, and we'll talk again. If you have any questions for Louise, please put those in the chat, and we'll address them at the end. Thank you so much, Louise.
Thank you, Marcia, for the kind words. I'm just a worker here. Anyway, our subject of study today is charity. And when I mean our subject of study is that's exactly what we're going to do together. All those books on the left, they are not just an illustration. Today, we're going to check out, share it on many publications, see if we can figure out each of one. What is charity? How can we include that in our daily lives? In very few moments, I will give you my opinion. I prefer to refer to the authors of those books. In particular, errant spirits messages, because although we know that errant spirits, they are just like us, their point of view is from a higher mountain. So their insights definitely can help us because our vision here incarnated at this time is limited. So allow me to introduce you to Charit in this sequence of slides. I will begin with Nicola Baiano. Nicola Baiano is an Italian, actually was an Italian existential philosopher. He discarnated in 1990, was born in 1901. And I often check out his Dizionario de Filosofia. I believe this work has not been translated to English, but it has been translated to many languages, including Portuguese, so it's very handy for me. And because he was essentially a lay philosopher, it's very good to get, a vision, a lay vision of some terms. And when I check charity in Nicola Baiano Dizionario de Filosofia, what do I find? He tells us that charity is the fundamental Christian virtue. Christian virtue. Saint Paul was the one who most insisted on the superiority of charity over other Christian virtues. In common language, he continues, this word is sometimes used in place of beneficence. But the common language also knows and uses the correct meaning of this term. And according to him, even in lay language, charity means love or understanding. Let's go to the gospel according to Spiritism. But before I begin, those who haven't been to one of my talks, all my slides I referenced. So what I'm going to tell you now comes from the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 15, items 6 and 7. The underlines are mine to help me when I'm discussing things with you. But the text itself is a word-for-word reproduction of the original message when it's in italics. So everything in this slide is a word-for-word reproduction of the Gospel according to Spiritism. As many times, there are many translations. So for the codification, I'm using the ICS or ISC, the International Spiritist Council version of the codification in English. It has been edited in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, and I like this translation very much, so that's the one I use it. Anyway, also, part of my objective here is to entice you to read. I want to awaken your curiosity because we must study. So you will find those quotes to be challenges to you, or to, make your curiosity arise. So feel free to go and check and verify and read all the rest, because I cannot reproduce everything. So you'll see a lot of three dots embraces, because I have to remove parts of the text whenever I show it. Please send messages. I feel very lonely when you don't send messages, even to say hi. Anyway, in these items in this chapter, Kardec talks about Paul, and he mentions, Paul said, if I did not have charity, I would be nothing. Hence, Kardec speaking about Paul, without any doubt, Paul, places charity above fate itself, because charity is within everyone's reach. The ignorant and the learned, the rich and the poor, because charity is independent of any particular belief system. He does even more. He defines true charity. He shows, Paul, that it's not only displayed in beneficence, but in the gathering of all the qualities of the heart, in goodness and benevolence towards one's neighbors. This is a painting of Paul the Apostle. I try to bring you other things, so maybe you are curious. This paint was painted by Rubens. I don't know exactly the date, the middle of the 18th century. Today, Rubens, as you know, is a Flemish painter, very famous. And today, this particular painting is at the Museu do Prado in Madrid. So if you go to Madrid, try to find and have a chance to see by yourself this picture. Actually, in the second half of the 18th century, it was part of the Kings of Spain collection. So it's a very a noble picture. But Paul is noble. These are Paul's words in 1 Corinthians. Charity is patient. It is kind and benevolent. Charity is not envious. It's not rash or hurried. It's not full of pride. It's not scornful. It does not look after its own interest. Charity does not take offense or become upset by anything. It does not suspect evil. It does not rejoice in injustice, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, endure all things. This translation comes exactly as it is in that particular, I'm going to show you, part in the Gospel According to Spiritism from the International Spiritist Council edition. And I memorized the page. Aha. And as you can see, this is what I just said. Charity is patient, it's kind and benevolent. Interesting enough, let me close that. If you go to new versions of the Bible, they use love instead of charity. So you'll find that love is patient. Love is kind and benevolent. I was reading the message from Marcia, and there is. Why is that? The word in English, the word in English was the word translated from the original Greek agape. João Korngold, that should be here, but he's not because he's coordinating another meeting from SGNY, has a excellent presentation. I don't remember the title, but if you go to SGNY site, you'll find it, where he explains the 4 different words in Greek that end up being translated as love in English, and they have subtle different meanings. Not that subtle, actually. And it shows the challenge of translating and deeply understand what is being said in messages such as this. So what Paul said here was agape is patient. And agape could be charity or could be love in a very buongiorno, Eric, good morning, on a very spiritist sense, if I might use that. So agape can be translated in charity or love in English. So we can understand they are words very linked together, maybe with the same meaning when they are expressed. Even the New King James Version uses love, but the Old King James Version uses charity. This is a very interesting book. I don't believe it has been translated to English. It's called Spiritist Opinion, Opinião Espírita. It has been psychographed by Chico Xavier and Valdo Vieira. It's been dated 1963. And in the presentation of the book, they say, translated here word for word. By the way, I forgot to tell you, books that have not been translated to English, I usually do my own free translation, and that's what I will present here to you. But it is still the translation, not word for word, but expression by expression of the original text. So this is the presentation of the book. Through the mediums, Francisco Cândido Xavier and Waldo Vieira, Emmanuel and André Luiz, selfless spiritual benefactors, form the chapters of this volume, with the former, Emmanuel, being responsible for the even-numbered messages, and the latter, André Luiz, for the odd-numbered messages, which were psychographed by both mediums, Francisco Xavier and Valdo Vieira, in public meetings. So note, the even-numbered should be from Emmanuel, and the odd number from André Luiz. So this is chapter 9, odd number, is a message from André Luiz. But before we go through it, there is a preface by Emmanuel that we should mention here. Emmanuel tells us, Allan Kardec respected those who were faithful to the theological judgments of the past, but he did not delay the renewing message of Spiritism. In offering the pages of this book to our friendly readers, we therefore make it clear that we, the Spiritists, incarnate and discarnate, accept the cults and prejudices, conceptualizations, and interpretations of others. We accept. But in this or that, we have our own opinion that we cannot forget nor despise. So in many places here, we will discuss particular spiritists' opinions on regard of other things. Opinions that we cannot forget or despise. So this is one of those. So what does André Luiz tells us here? He tells us, Paul of Tarsus, writing to the Corinthians, said that charity bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. But he did not forget to recommend to the Thessalonians that they examine everything, retaining the good. So let's admit with the utmost respect for the gospel text, that the apostle of gentleness, Paul, would naturally have implied, explaining that. So he's explaining his view on Paul's on the implications of what Paul said. He says, charity suffers all things in order to be useful, believes all things in order to discern, hopes all things in order to achieve the best, and endures all things in order to learn. Being useful, being able to discern, being able to achieve the best, being able to learn. That's André Luiz' interpretations of Paul when writing to the Corinthians. That's neat, isn't it? By the way, to me, this sounds so much more like Emmanuel than André Luiz, but I gave the authorship to André Luiz because it's what's said in the beginning. Whoa, aha, Marcia is recovering the four different words, philia, eros, storge, and agape. Marcia, you are fantastic. You definitely got to read the notes from Marcia. Let's go to the Spirit's book. In 1886, Kardec asks straight to the benefactor spirits, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? And the answer is always very straight. It's also very straight. The meaning of charity is benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. Benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. Regarding this explanation, this question, Kardec has a number of comments that I mentioned here, but I don't know who's the author of this drawing of Kardec. As you can see, it's the same image that we see in a lot of other publications. It's signed A. Gilbert and J. Robert. But I did a lot of research. I couldn't figure out who actually did this illustration. So if anyone knows, please share with us. But what is the commentary by Kardec? Loving our neighbors is to do them all the good possible, all that we would wish to be done to ourselves. Charity, according to Jesus, it's not restricted to almsgiving. It's not restricted to almsgiving, but it embraces all our relationships with our fellow humans, whether in situations below, equal, or superior to our own. Those who are truly charitable, Kardec tells us regarding this question, regarding charity, those who are truly charitable seek to uplift the self-esteem of those in lower positions, thereby diminishing the distance between both. I hope you're taking notes because we are collecting information about the nature of charity from these messages and communications that we are reading, and we're going to go on doing this. Back to the gospel, according to Spiritism, we will find a number of messages of specific spirits. Let's check out what they tell us about charity. This is an image of Saint Vincent de Paul. Actually, this is a 17th century portrait by Simon François de York. There are not many images of Saint Vincent de Paul. I'm sorry. This is a message given in 1858. St. Vincent de Paul discarnated in 1660. Actually, he was born in 1581 and discarnated in 1660. He was born in France, of a peasant origin, ordaining priest at 19 years, creator of many works of love and charity at a time when the clergy's moral were flagging. He was renowned by his compassion, humility, and generosity. As a curiosity, in 1605, he was what, 30 something? Actually, no, 20 something. He was taken hostage by barbarian pirates when traveling by boat in the Mediterranean and auctioned as a slave in Tunis. He spent 2 years in bondage. He eventually was able to escape from Istanbul with a former master. He went through 4 masters. In Franciscan media, there's a comment saying Vincent was by nature a rather irascible person, but he slowly learned to become more sensitive to the needs of others. So there's hope for us. He's said to have been the holiest priest of that century. In his communication, what St. Vincent de Paul shares with us, he tells us that, in his view, charity is the fundamental virtue that must uphold the entire edifice of earthly virtues. Without charity, none of the others exist. Without charity, there's no hope for a better future, no more interest to guide us. Without charity, there's no faith, for faith is nothing more than a pure ray of light that makes a charitable soul shine. Charity is the eternal anchor of salvation on all worlds. Neat, isn't it? Then we move to a message from another errant spirit. It also comes from the Gospel according to Spiritism. In the image, we see Antoine Louis Adolphe Dupuc, the first Bishop of Alger. He was born in 1800 and he discarnated in 1856. As Bishop of Alger, and I write here Alger, although I think the correct spelling would be Algier, but it's the way it is in the ICS book, and I follow the ICS translation. It's interesting that as Bishop of Algiers, he paid for the construction of 60 new churches, chapels, and oratories in French Algiers out of his own pocket. However, he was forced to resign as a bishop as he went in debt. That says a lot about the times. Anyway, in this communication in 1861, and note that's just 5 years after he discarnated, charity, oh sublime word that summarizes all virtues. It is you who must lead the peoples of the world to happiness. By practicing you, they will create infinite joys for themselves in the future. And during their exile on the earth, you shall be their consolation. The foretaste of the joys they shall delight in latter. It was you, O divine virtue, who provided me with the only moments of happiness that I enjoyed on earth. It's Interesting communication. And we are beginning to discuss not only what is charity, but how can we practice charity? And this is a terrain we're going to explore more from now on. And thank you, Marcia, for all the additional information you were posting there. This is a communication by Gian, made on Bordeaux in 1861. Who was Gian? I did some research, and according to Casa do Caminho, Gian is John Lefebvre de Cheverus, the first bishop of Boston, and later the Archbishop of Bordeaux. He was born in 1768. He discarnated in 1836. This painting, by the way, is an oil on canvas made on 1823 by an American artist, Gilbert Stuart. And today it is being shown on the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. I think Susara tried to find it there, but she couldn't. Anyway, if anyone finds this exposed, please tell us in what room it is. So what Gian tells us, he tells us, all of you who can produce something, give. Give of your talents, give of your inspiration, give of your hearts. Poets and authors, painters, sculptors, artists of all genres. May your intelligence also come to aid your brothers and sisters. All of you can give. Whatever may be your social status, you have something you can share. We all have something we can share. As I told you, this is a study together. I'm not going to state things. We have to figure out things. Caritas was a spirit who communicated through one of the mediums of Kardec's time, Madame Crelle, in a group in Bordeaux, France. Who is Caritas? Well, in the Spiritist Review of 1862, there is a brief message, a passage where Kardec is talking about a donation that has been given to somewhere, and the Spirit Caritas in a communication discuss something about this particular donation, and Kardec explains that Caritas is Saint Irene. He means the Saint Irene of Thessalonica, who is reproduced in this image. Actually, this is a painting by Nouvelone that is today in the Louvre, in the Denon area, first floor, room 17. So if you go to Paris, go to the Louvre, look for this painting of Caritas. Saint Irene's Caritas was one of three sisters, but I will discuss this later. What Caritas tells us? She tells us that there are many ways to practice charity, so we become more practical now. Which many of you confuse charity with almsgiving. That's a common confusion, I must say. I think I grew up believing that charity was almsgiving. And she continues, one can be charitable even towards one's family and friends by being indulgent towards family and friends, by forgiving their weaknesses, and by taking care not to wound their self-esteem. And she continues addressing us, Spiritists, and new Spiritists, and Euro Spiritists can practice charity in the way you act toward those who do not think as you do. How? By leading the less enlightened to believe, but without shocking them and without attacking them, their convictions. We Spiritists should instead do that by gently inviting them to our meetings, where they can listen to us and where we will be able to find a way to their hearts. That is one aspect of charity. By Caritas, Lyon, 1861. That's for us, Spiritists. This, I don't know the origin of this particular, I forgot how it's called, that shows Agape, Tionia, and Irene Caritas that we're talking about. There were three sisters, martyrs of Christianism. Around 300 AD, the three were sacrificed by the Roman, actually by order of the governor Ducerius, during the time of the Roman Emperor Diocletian, for holding Christian writings. It was forbidden to carry or keep writings that propagated Christianity at the time. And they did that and hid that, but they were found, interrogated, and killed. There are sources that tells us that the three sisters were burned, and others that say that only Agape and Clonia, and that Irene was killed by an arrow through her neck after some bad things were done to her. Those are the two versions. Actually, Saint Irene was born, if you're curious about the name, Saint Irene was born Penelope. But it seems that they were raised by a monk, and short after birth, this monk renamed the three sisters. So Agape, love, is how he renamed one of them. Irene, that means peace in Greek, was how he renamed the other. And Kionia, I don't know what it means. Marcia, what does Kionia means in Greek? That's your challenge. I go to the next slide. This is Jeanne-Marie Rendu, also known as Rosalia Rendu, Sister Rosalia. She was born in 1786, and she discarnated in 1856. And she was an important figure in Paris in the 19th century, loved and venerated, in particular by the humble people. This comes from Larousse Encyclopedia. This particular image is an heliography. Actually, was prepared using heliography, something very new at the time. Heliography is one of the early steps of lithography. And what they did is that they, using asphalt over a steel plate and an acid substance, it stayed hours under the sun with an image, a daguerreography on top, and essentially it would etch in the steel the images of the photo that later were, finished by an engraver. This process was developed by a guy named Nis de Saint-Vitor. And the thing is, this engraving allowed the image to be reproduced many times to printing, just like lithography. So what Rosalia Rendu tells us regarding charity? She tells us, I want you to understand fully what moral charity entails. The type of charity that everyone can exhibit and costs nothing materially, but which is nonetheless very difficult to put into practice. Moral charity consists of giving support to one another, and it is what you practice the least on the law order world where you are incarnate for now. Believe me, there is great merit in knowing how to keep quiet and let a more ignorant person speak. This is yet another kind of charity. Knowing how to turn a deaf ear when a mocking word escapes the mouth accustomed to scorn. Not paying attention to the smirk of disdain that greets your entry amongst persons who often wrongly think they are above you. Whereas in the spirit life, the only true life, they are sometimes far from it. These are meritorious acts, not from the point of humility, but of charity, because not paying attention to someone else's wrongs portrays moral charity. Not paying attention to someone else's wrongs portrays moral charity. Marcia tells us that Kiona means snow. I did not know that. Thank you, Marcia. Let's move to other books. This book is called Ceifa de Luz, and the best translation I could find would be Harvest of Light by Emmanuel. This book has been first published in 1980, but it actually is a collection of communications from 1972, chosen and later replaced by Emmanuel himself, according to the introduction. What Emmanuel tells us here is that in sustaining spiritual progress, we need charity as much as we need air that ensures organic balance. Remember that interdependence is the regime instituted by God for the stability of the whole universe. And don't forget the understanding that we owe all creatures. Understanding that is expressed through unceasing tolerance and kindness. Unceasing tolerance and kindness. In the healthy conviction that by helping others, we can find the indispensable help for our own safety. This comes from Joanna de Angelis, and I know you have been studying Joanna de Angelis. Actually, Marcia just told me, I wasn't aware before, that you have been studying charity this whole week. So, a lot of responsibility here. Anyway, this book is called Lampadario Espírita. I translated to Spiritist Lamp. I understand it has not been translated. It is recently new book, 2021. And what Joanna tells us there. Actually, before that, in the preface, Joanna tells us, we, she means her, we present this Spiritist lamp for the homes of the earth in order to clarify homes in moral shadows or rekindle the flame of Christian love in domestic intimacy. It's a neat introduction, isn't it? And what she tells us? She tells us that while religious concepts from the most diverse schools of faith were in force, the noble benefactors of humanity through Allan Kardec were conclusive. Without charity, there's no salvation. Charity, not only as a theological virtue, Charity not only as a religious guideline, share it not implicit as a condition of faith, but charity purely and simply as a norm of behavior. She's recommending us applying charity in our daily lives in the ways we have been talking about, purely and simply as a norm of behavior. I find it very neat as well. And I go back to Opinião Espírita, to Spiritist Opinion. That book, remember, where the odd chapters were written by André Luiz and the even chapters were supposedly written by Emmanuel. So this is an even chapter. So this comes from Emmanuel. Supposedly. What is the message? Tumult and noise in human friction call for a rare kind of charity. The charity of knowing how to listen. There are many who stagger, disoriented in the absence of tolerance that listens to them. So that you can give them the support they deserve, do not give them the aloof look of one who doesn't want to be bothered. And don't say the classic phrase, "A lot worse has happened to me," with which we often, under the pretext of helping, only flaunt our self-centeredness in front of others, without realizing that we are crushing them. The moment you have the opportunity to speak, say the phrase that clarifies without hurting, or that revives without deceiving. Let's learn to listen in order to help, without presuming to solve. Let's learn to listen in order to help, without presuming to solve. The funny thing is, this looks to me so much more like André Luiz than Emmanuel. The same way that the other message looked so much more like Emmanuel than André Luiz. So maybe it's just the other way around. But that's how it is reported in the book, and I will follow the references. And we go back to Joanna de Angelis. This is an older book. It's been published the first time in 1981. It's called Alert. I believe it also, I could not find an English translation of this book. In the presentation, it said that they are simple and quick thoughts for emergency problems and difficult procedures. In chapter 11, Joanna tells us, if you suffer the gratuitous incomprehension of well-educated people who allow themselves to be anesthetized by the vapors of antipathy and turn their animosity against you, not resting in their efforts to sensitize you, hurt you, facing the pain that comes to you from the most varied sources, she recommends us, live the charity of patience. Difficult charity is apologizing to the offenders and taking them into account as sick persons in need of your friendship and consideration. At the same time, it is an enlightening path towards your aspirations. True patience with perseverance in duty constitutes the excellent moral charity that we all need. patience with perseverance in duty. We got a lot of clues on how to be charitable from the messages of these errant spirits, haven't we? Again, this is a joint study. We must figure out things by ourselves. I'm only guiding you here, as I am showing those particular messages. There's this book. It's also not available in English, I believe. It's called Dictionary of the Soul. This book, first printed in 1964, was apparently conceived and executed by Esmeralda Bittencourt. This is according to Emmanuel's introduction. And the objective was to have a collection of definitions and concepts that came from messages from discarnate friends. So, from the introduction by Emmanuel, he says, here we have, as a result of your blessed work, the word by Esmeralda Bittencourt, a dictionary of spiritist thoughts dedicated to the edification and comfort and examples of faith. Yes, my friend, on behalf of all our companions, I believe he means his companions, errant spirits that sends messages to us, those that send these uplifting messages to us. So on behalf of our companions, please accept our heartfelt gratitude for the dedication with which you have worked to archive our humble words. And I pick it up. 4 messages related to charity on the verbet charity in the Dictionary of the Soul. So, from May, charity in thought, word and deed is the process of renewing our souls. From Emmanuel, charity is not the exclusive work of those who are temporarily detained in material wealth. Charity is, above all, love, help, and self-giving. It is, above all, love, help, and self-giving. We can all help. From Teresa de Ávila, only charity holds the key to the human heart to make life better. And from May, another message. The charity of the one who teaches is the guarantee of charity in the one who learns. That's a good one, isn't it? Now we move to Humberto de Campos. I don't know how many of you know of Humberto de Campos. Humberto de Campos, he's an interesting story. He was born in 1886, discarnated in 1934. He was a very sick person, physically sick, I mean. He was a writer and a journalist and a congressman. He joined the Brazilian Academy of Letters in 1919, so he was 30-something years, very, very young to be accepted or to be called to join the Brazilian Academy of Letters. I believe he's wearing this picture, the formal clothes of a member. He not only wrote under his own name, and by the way, he was a congressman in 1920, 1 year later. He not only wrote under his own name, Humberto de Campos, but sometimes he used a pseudonym while incarnated called Counselor XX. Counselor XX. He was not a spiritist when incarnated, but he believed in immortality. It's interesting to note that he began communicating through Chico Xavier 3 months after he was discarnated. But shortly after the publication of this psychographic book that mentioned Humberto de Campos, the family of Humberto de Campos actually, how do they say that in English? They went to the courts to ask for rights because it was a work by Humberto de Campos, and actually the discarnated Humberto de Campos was appalled for this, and after that he always signed his communications as Brother X, not Counselor XX, as Brother X. So this is by Brother X in his book Letters and Chronicles, that I also think has not been translated into English. So this is my translation. In chapter 27, he tells us, charity is to serve without rest. Charity is to serve without rest, even when an unimportant illness summons you to rest. It is to cooperate spontaneously in good works, without waiting for the invitations of others. Charity is not to bother those who work. Charity is to improve yourself in what you do in order to be more useful. Charity is to bear the bile of one's companion without revolt, to bear the bad humor. Charity is helping your relatives without reproach. It is to rejoice in the prosperity of one's neighbors. Charity is summarizing a 2-hour conversation in 3 or 4 sentences. I love that one. Charity is not distressing those who accompany you. It's deafening ourselves to slumber. Charity is to keep a good mood, canceling complaints wherever they come from. Charity is to respect each person and each thing. The fulfillment of your duties towards your neighbor will always be your greatest charity. And, I couldn't help myself to go back to chapter 17 to share with you this message. Brother X tells us, you say that Spiritists exaggerate the themes of charity, launching books, writing chronicles, giving lectures, and drawing up notes on the sublime virtue. However, what swimmer wouldn't extend friendly arms to a bather threatened with death by the rough sea? Charity is an ingredient of peace in all climates of existence, not only relieving the suffering or lifting up the fallen, but also thwarting crimes and removing misfortunes. Work and pain, warning and trial do much to benefit the soul. However, charity brings immediate renewal to destiny. Charity brings immediate renewal to destiny. I hope you all want to bring immediate renewal to destiny by doing charity in the many ways that we discussed, and now that we better know the meaning of the word. I hope we do. And I will finalize right on time, Marcia. I deserve a star. With the saying by St. Vincent de Paul, already discussed this. This, by the way, is a portrait done by Dumostier that is in the Bonnat et Léon Museum of Bayonne in the Pays Basque in France. So if you go to the Bascogne, try to check out this particular portrait. And what St. Vincent de Paul tells us here: be good and charitable, for that's the key to heaven, the key you hold in your hands. All eternal happiness is contained in this precept: love one another. St. Vincent of Paul, Paris, a 1550 way. Thank you so much. I can be reached at that email address. And I hope you have enjoyed this talk. All of you. Thank you.
I loved it. Thank you. Thank you so much for you, for everyone. What a compendium of references of one word, charity, right, Louise? One word, and just the unveiling of meaning that will touch all of us. Um, from, I love what you said earlier, summarizing a topic in 3 to 4 words. For me, charity is saying good morning. It is smiling. It is understanding when the other is not what we want them to be, right? Or need them to be. But Louise, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everyone who's here with us today. I do hope that this amazing talk can touch you as much as it has touched me. And Louise, if you don't mind, do you can you please do a prayer before we say goodbye for today?
Sure. It's been an honor, by the way. Love being here. Thank you, Marcia, for the invitation. I believe we definitely should start by thank you to our spiritual advisors for allowing us to be here and to study together and to learn a bit more together and to try to improve ourselves. Thank you. Thank you to those abnegated spirits who work so hard to be able to share their messages with us. So thank you, Emmanuel, Andrea Luiz, Joanna de Angelis, Sampo, Caritas, and all others that we have mentioned here, and all the others that we have not mentioned here. Thank you for your dedication and support to us in this incarnated states. Thank you, mediums. Thank you, Chico Xavier and Ivone Pereira, and so many others that also dedicate a lot of their lives to this communication. Thank you to the mediums in our spirit houses that also spend a lot of their time and dedication to help the errant spirits that we provide guidance in our centers and that also allow us to do the work that we have to do. Thank you. The image blinked for a moment. Thank you, incarnated persons who work in our spirit centers. Thank you, Valdemiro. Thank you, João Cornwell. Thank you, Jussara. Thank you, Marcia. And thank you, Valdir. And thank you, all others, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do our work, to study, to learn, to help. Thank you, all discarnated spirits here around me, around Marcia, around all of you. I hope it also has been good for you to check out these ideas, and I hope it helps also your learning. And thank you, incarnated, who are here. Thank you, Eric, who's the only one who sent me a message, and all the others that hopefully are watching their now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you all. Until next time, thank you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.